Salvatore Alaimo is a professor at Grand Valley State University in Michigan. He's a veteran of the nonprofit world. He worked for the United Way and the Girl Scouts. He has now produced a documentary film titled What is Philanthropy?, looking at the whole concept of giving to charity and the place of philanthropy in our society. Professor, thanks for being with us. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you.
You're in town to participate in a showing of your video at Bay Path University, and we're very glad that you were able to spend some time with us.
Good to be here.
You say that realize it or not, and most of us don't, we all are philanthropists if we give even the tiniest amount of money or time or talent to some charity. But most of us just don't understand the whole concept of philanthropy and giving in America today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the word philanthropist is associated with, in older times, people like Rockefeller and Carnegie, and more currently with people like Bill Gates. But, you know, the word philanthropia, which is the Greek root of the word, is the love of man. So this concept of giving has been around for centuries, and it's not just for wealthy people. So any of us that give, even if we volunteer our time to babysit our neighbor's child, you know, those small random acts of kindness makes us all philanthropists.
You make a point in the video, as I understand it, that it isn't just signing a check or giving money. It may be a service. It may be a very unique service. I mean, you point out, I think, a group of mothers who have lost, and I mean, this is just heartbreaking when you think of it. They've lost babies pre-birth. They are still able to produce milk. They provide milk for moms who have their babies full term, but for whatever reason, illness or whatever, cannot breastfeed their babies.
Yeah, I stumbled upon the Mother's Milk Bank in Indianapolis, and you're exactly right in how you described it. And the moms that have lost their babies that are able to donate their milk for moms who, and other babies that could use it, have indicated it's a way to help them get past their grief. And it's a way that their lost child's life can still kind of live on. And it's a way for them to put their milk to good use. So I think a lot of times philanthropy and giving can help us as givers get through some tough times. And that was just one example.
You point out that philanthropy, giving to charity, is needed because I think a lot of us say, hey, government supports this or big business supports this. And they do a lot, but there's a lot they can't or won't or shouldn't do.
Yeah, this is a very important point you're making here, because I think the average citizen has a difficulty grappling with how business, government, and the philanthropic or nonprofit sector each play a role in our lives. And it gets very confusing for the average citizen. If you're listening to the media, no offense to the media, or politicians, everybody's going to be tugging you in different directions and trying to tell you, well, that shouldn't be the role of government. That should be the nonprofit sector, or that should be the business and be left up to the free market. We're seeing these debates in healthcare right now. So this makes it very dizzying for citizens to navigate. But the one thing I hope to get across in the film for anybody who watches it is that they realize that the nonprofit sector as a whole is not adequately funded to be a safety net for critical services that we as citizens need. At $330 billion of annual giving, that sounds like a lot of money, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the federal budget. So hopefully we can start to educate people and get them to understand that. You
go to some pains as well to tell both sides of the story, if you will, to show that the philanthropic world is not all sweetness and light, that many people don't understand that sometimes a really small percentage of what they give, and it depends on the charity or the not-for-profit, but sometimes a pretty small percentage ends up going to the bottom line, to the charity, to the illness, to the scientific research. A lot goes to overhead.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where we as consumers of these organizations and as donors or even volunteers, we have to do our due diligence. We have to look at the finances, look up their 990 tax return form, ask for the annual report, visit the organization, talk to them, kind of vet them in advance before we commit our dollars and time to them to make sure that the money, as you say, is really going to where it's supposed to be going.
And yet in some cases, I mean, these are pretty good organizations, yes, but for whatever reason, the cost of raising the money, the cost of their organization overhead, they do encounter a situation where maybe 50%, or in some cases a good deal less, really ends up in the hand of the needy or the researcher or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and this is a tension that most nonprofits deal with. How much of our expenses should go to whatever we call the program, and how much should go to our overhead? And we know that programs don't have an autopilot switch, right? We know programs need administration to run. So I think there's some sort of balance that needs to be struck in there to make programs healthy, but also be effective to who they serve.
One of the philanthropies you talk about, profile in the video, is one that's kind of close to our hearts here in New England because a lot of their operations aren't too far from where we are. The Newman's Own Organic folks. Nell Newman, daughter of Paul Newman, the late Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward. Their hole-in-the-wall camp is not too very far from where we are across the Connecticut border. They're generally, I think, regarded, and they're kind of homies to all of us. So, I mean, we like them. But I think they're generally regarded, from what I've read, as a pretty darn good not-for-profit charity. An awful lot, if not everything they give or get, goes.
Yeah, I mean, they are businesses. You know, the organics line is a business. The Newman's Own is a business. But they give a tremendous amount of their profits. At one point, I don't know if this is still true, Newman's Own was giving all of its profits away. You know, after they covered their expenses, was giving all of that money away to charity. And I know Nell's organization gives a large percentage as well. So clearly different than your average corporation engaging in philanthropy.
Did you find, because I know myself sometimes when we wanted to do stories, you'll find a wealthy individual, philanthropist, a business that gives charity. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it simply because they want it to be anonymous. They don't want to get the pat on the back. Sometimes they don't want to have everybody and their brother coming to their door saying, we want you to give. And sometimes they don't want people to know who they've chosen to give to. Did you find it easy to get people to sit down and talk with you about this?
I would say I was pretty lucky. I had a pretty good track record, but I did have a fair amount of those examples where they said, hey, I believe in your project, Sal, this is great, we need to educate people, but I just don't want to be that one on camera telling my story. And one local philanthropist to me in Grand Rapids, I wanted him to tell his story about how he spent his foundations down, spent the money down, which is rare in today's case, but he just wanted a very humble guy, just wanted to be modest and not be known. And in some cases, you're right, they don't want to put it out on television and have an avalanche of applications coming in. So yeah, I did run across some of that as well. Oh, sure.
I remember one time a few years ago when I was a field reporter doing a story with a local organization, a church-based organization that gathered money for fuel for people in the winter. And they were having a tough time. And I remember as I was leaving, the head of the organization said, you know, this is going to help. People are going to see this story. The American people are really very good. After going through this experience, working in the not-for-profit, doing this, what's your sense of why and how we give?
Yeah, I think it's part of the American culture. I think you can't study philanthropy unless you study the history of the United States. I think it's embedded in our country's history. It's embedded in how our country was founded initially. And, you know, the nonprofit sector and how it's officially structured in the United States is rather unique. It's unlike in any other country. And I would also add in there in the mix, of course, the faith and religion still is a big motivating factor for why people give.
Salvatore Alaimo, producer of What is Philanthropy, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.